the options you see for charging for content, or have you rejected that concept totally? And to what extent are you trying to build a consortium to work with you on that?
You heard a little something about that? Well, I think actually the way we're going to charge for content is really through the kind of development of new reading applications, and probably focused on mobile. That it's going to be kind of surrounding the kind of new set of devices that are going to come to market that will have good enough color quality to be able to reproduce magazines and reflow text and create a really gorgeous experience. And I think consumers, we've already seen in the iPhone that they're willing to pay for content if it's presented in a kind of mobile application.
And we got an end-to-end solution, so like the iPhone, you control everything, the content is the hardware.
Well, we've got to solve as many problems for the consumer as possible. I mean, Reed Hastings talked about that today at lunch. You've got to think about how to really deliver the full package to the consumer. So, you know, the connectivity, the device, and the actual application that loads the content, really the way that the content is consumed is all going to be critical. These aren't easy things to do in isolation. Obviously, to do them for an industry is, I think, extremely difficult. But, you know, the hardware industry, I think, is waiting for the publishers to get their act together and give them standards by which they can produce devices that will receive this.
Is that what you're trying to do, create standards that others will sign on to?
I think if somebody were to create a set of standards and they had a common reading experience, and hopefully an ad platform that integrates with that, and a storefront by which consumers can buy it, I think that would be good business.
An advertising-only model. Do you think it's totally insane to ever try to have people pay for content?
No, I don't think it's totally insane at all. And Walter, when he gave his open, he referred to an article that he wrote, which I think was a cover story, on the cover of Time magazine back in February, that he got a lot of heat for. Should people pay, can you put the genie back in the bottle, should people pay for content, for news and information content? And here we are sitting in October, just a few short months, we're still in the same year, 2009, and obviously the tide has turned dramatically in trying to think about answers to that question. I think that there is content that people will pay for. I don't think we know now what that content will be and where on the continuum of commodity content versus more evergreen, long-form pieces, where people are going to pay, how they're going to pay. It will also depend on what's of interest to you as an individual. You'll pay for some things that another person might not pay for. But it absolutely will and should be explored. I think we're very much at the early days of experimenting with that.
Well, how do you solve the question if you put up a paywall, you no longer part of the conversation?
Well, I mean, that's the tough part, right? You know, how do you put gates around your content? And really, something that we spend a lot of time doing without being posted and thinking about is, how does the user behave? What do they want? What do they like? What do they not like? What are they consuming? Or are they not consuming? They thought they were going to consume that great piece that Ariana did on healthcare. Gee, they didn't like it as much as we thought they liked it.
This is off the record. We'll tell Ariana to do something.
Well, healthcare is an interesting topic because the Huffington Post has gone very, very hard and deep into healthcare coverage this fall. And, you know, there's some technologists that would say, some people on the other side of the fence that would say, well, I don't know, you know, I think the entertainment content should be better on the front page. So that's the constant push and pull of what an editor might think is important versus, you know, what the peer numbers show you. I think that the notion of, and I think a lot of people thought when Walter's article came out in February, a lot of people thought he was saying that news organizations should put a gate around everything. And that is ridiculous. And it's not what you were saying if you go back and read that cover piece. But rather the experimentation of thinking about what you do want to put gates around and what you don't want to put gates around. You can't put gates around commodity news. You can't put gates around, information.
But if you charge for non-commodity news, will that be an incentive for journalists to quit being pack journalists producing commodity news?
Absolutely. One of the reasons the Huffington Post went in the direction it did as a curated news organization is we didn't really want to add to the carbon footprint of news and information. There were 1,500 journalists at the Democratic National Convention last summer. That's a lot of people covering one very particular story. So I think everybody realizes that the industry is somewhat overbuilt, and those that are doing Me Too journalism or, just sort of adding to a conversation that originated somewhere else, not really sort of adding to the conversation, that's what should drop off the map.
I think the trick is valuing content. It's a little bit different than valuing an apple that you get at the store. And in our view, what you don't want to do is create a paywall or commodity content. What you really want to do is create what we call a dynamic threshold. So rather than thinking about a paywall, you think about content that can be a commodity tomorrow, but really special today. So as a journalist, you might say, for the first 100,000 people that see this, you really need to have a global content access pass.
I think whatever models develop that encourage this, we ought to be trying to test and utilize. So I don't think there need to be one system. It occurs to me, we talk about commodity content and exclusive content. And, I think 90% of the magazine industry is exclusive content, it's specialized, right? And so this whole argument, whether or not you can get paid for it, just strikes me as really kind of an odd one. And that so much of the special interest nature of the publisher, it seems to me completely apparent that it's not available elsewhere when you look at kind of specific categories of magazines. So, I think one of the issues is how do you develop a sizable online audience if you're putting some restricted content in against your magazine and protecting your magazine content. So that's obviously got some cost to the publisher. But a lot of these websites aren't very profitable right now, so I wonder what we're protecting.
Explain the profitability now. What is the CPM you're getting for a digital banner ad that's not sold specifically?
I can't say what it's such a blend across our organization, we don't even know.
But was it enough to support the websites, or do you have to find some other revenues?
We've got profitable websites because they're huge in scale, but I'll bet a lot of other publishers are on very much more lines.
Then why don't you just be the last man standing and just do it advertising only and let the other websites fail?
Well, again, we compete against a lot more than just magazines, right? Pure online plays, they're trying to build their businesses off of advertising. So I just think, the whole argument about whether we can get payment, we can only find out if we ask the consumer, right? In the end, you have to have the guts to be able to say my content's worth something. And, I'm not going to give it away for free. And I'm going to start to impose certain dates in it and take what I believe is original and valuable and create a model by which the consumer has to pay.
Do you think it makes sense to do this as a consortium, or could you go it alone? I know you're trying to get together as a consortium.
Well, I think it would be helpful if quality publishers were thinking about how to protect their content.
And these are magazine publishers, or do you think the newspaper doesn't?
To be any good journalistic resource today, should the New York Times give all its content away for free? I really question that. And I think others share that same sentiment. I just really wonder why we're not making a movement towards it. Many times magazines